Hey there, it's Mike from Modern Retro Dev. This time around I'm going to be talking about a game I wrote, which is like a miniature version of Sudoku. Stay tuned. So as I was saying, I wrote a game. It's a miniature version of Sudoku. And as you guys know, my development target ultimately is always modern retro systems. But I've never seen a game like this before, so I wanted to first make sure that it was actually viable. So in my development process, I started out by initially developing a prototype in Python just to see if it would work. And once I determined that it worked and it seemed like it might be fun, I ported that prototype over to C to run on modern systems. And I fully fleshed out the game because I find it a little more challenging to write code for retro systems. So if I have what I want, or if I have an example of what I want in a modern system, then it's just a matter of porting that over as opposed to developing it there directly. So before I go into all the nitty-gritty about how it was developed, I wanted to start off by doing a demonstration of the game now. Okay, so here's my game I wrote. It's called Minidoku. It's basically a kind of miniature, simple version of Sudoku that should only take about 2 minutes to play. The difference here is instead of normal Sudoku, which has numbers 1 through 9, this game uses smaller boxes with numbers 1 through 4. And as a result of this, for continuity across rows and columns, you only check the neighboring box to the left or right or up or down, respectively. This was a little bit of a complicated concept. To simplify it, I added shading of the cells so you can better see the bounds of the numbers you're working on. Another feature here is the game can be played with the keyboard, the mouse, or the gamepad completely, or you can play it with using a combination thereof. For this demonstration, I am using a gamepad, but you can pick whatever makes the most sense for you. So as I mentioned earlier, there is cell shading here. The box that you're currently in is blue or partially blue. The rows are shown in red and the columns are shown in green. And just like Sudoku, you basically want to fill in the box, row, and column so that each of them end up having all the numbers they're supposed to have without repeating any. So in this case, this should be number 4, this should be number 3, this will be a 3, that'll be a 1, this will be a 3, that'll be a 1. The game is pretty fast, so I'm just going to go ahead and play this through while I'm talking at you guys. That way you can see what the game looks like when it's completed. So, sorry if I struggle to talk and play at the same time. That is definitely not one of my strong suits. We'll see if I actually complete this successfully or if it's botched. Okay, so once you finish filling in all the empty spaces, you'll notice the submit button on the right starts blinking. Then you'd hit the submit button. If you're playing with like an Xbox style controller, there's a button that will submit. If you're playing with a keyboard, there's a button there, or if you're playing with the mouse, you could just click. So we'll go ahead and submit. I completed it successfully. The score starts at a value of 950 and then starts decreasing. I think it was kind of a logarithmic function I was using to sort of calculate that decay. It's similar. Anyway, basically, the faster you fill in the puzzle, the higher your score will be. And then you can either play another round or head back to the menu. So one thing I should mention is when I was doing earlier tests with some of my friends, I noticed one of my friends was colorblind and they were struggling a lot with seeing the highlighting I had done for the cells. So I did add a colorblind mode down here at the bottom. So if you are a person that has difficulty distinguishing between red or green or blue or some combination thereof, hopefully this mode makes it a little bit easier to see. I don't know if my color choices were great, but there is only gray and blue, so hopefully people can better distinguish between those colors. Alright, so now you guys have seen what the game looks like. I hope you think it's fun. I've had a lot of fun playing it. I've had a number of my friends try it out. They also seem to do it quite favorably. And so next I will answer another question that you might have. Okay, so here's something fun that I threw together. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet in the video, but this is a game that I'm just going to be giving away for free in case you guys would like to play it. To make it easier for me to distribute, I went ahead and made myself an account on itch.io. My fun little studio for my publications here is Prompt Critical Games. This is the page for my thing, and this is the page on itch where you can get yourself a copy of Minidoku. Just scroll down and get the appropriate version for the operating system you're playing with. I built two versions. I built one for Linux using AppImage, so it should run just about anywhere. And there's also a Windows version built. Has information on how to play it and all that stuff. Also, if you find yourself being adverse to itch, I've made the same game files available through GitHub. So if you can find my GitHub account, you can find the game there as well. And I will say, for source code development, GitHub is obviously the choice to go with here, but for distributing games, I do like itch, just based on what I've seen here. It does provide helpful analytic information, seeing how many people actually download the game and that sort of stuff. It makes it easier for people to leave comments and feedback on the game. So you can get it from either place that sounds that you're more comfortable with, but wanted to bring that to your attention. So now that I've shown you guys what the game is and where you can get yourself a copy, I'd like to talk a little bit about the development side of it. I mentioned earlier that I started with a Python prototype, and once I found it viable, I went ahead and ported it to C. And the rationale behind that is I was hoping that the bulk of the code that I would need to write for the game would be like freely portable to like these modern systems, or modern retro systems rather. And unfortunately, based on what I've seen, only about 30 to 40% of the code is like puzzle related logic. So that I will be able to just compile and run on X16 and F256. But the bulk of the code is actually on the UI side, which will not be directly portable. So it'll mean a little bit more effort for me, but still there is the ability to reuse code, so that's nice. I guess a little bit more details. I am using C, and once again I'm using Raylib for the UI for the modern systems. I continue to think it's a fantastic library, pretty simple to use, so I would give it a high recommendation. Now, on to the technical aspects of how to create a game like this. I've thrown together a couple of little videos to sort of show how the puzzles get generated. And basically there's I some years ago wrote an actual Sudoku game, like this miniature one, and there's basically a process to it. First, you have to generate the cells, well, the numbers that go in the cells, and once you have those numbers, then you need to basically remove some of them. And in my first attempt years back, I was like, oh, I can just randomly generate numbers and plop them in anywhere. Eventually, I'll get a valid puzzle. And that is the worst way ever to do it. You really need to sort of check and make sure you're putting random numbers in valid locations when you're generating them. Otherwise, it'll just never give you a valid puzzle. So there's that. Also, I did study quite a number of like Sudoku puzzle books that I had, and interestingly enough, it's not about how many blank spaces you have that defines the difficulty of the puzzle. It's all about the techniques that you have to use to solve the puzzle. So one of the aspects of this is you don't just create a code that generates the numbers and hide cells at random. You also have to develop a Sudoku solver in lockstep with the development of your code. And so as you're removing cells, you basically need to run the solver on it. And if you wanted to have multiple difficulty levels, you would basically have an easy solver, a medium solver, and a hard solver with different techniques at their disposal. And so if you generate a puzzle and the hard solver can solve it, but the medium solver can't, that's a hard puzzle. If the medium solver can solve it, but the easy one can't, it's a medium puzzle. If the easy solver can solve it, that's an easy puzzle. So I didn't include difficulty levels in Minidoku because it's just such a simple game. It's just supposed to be kind of mindless fun. But if you were to put together a more complicated Sudoku game, that was the process I used there. But let me go ahead and pop over here and show you guys a visual display of how that puzzle is initially populated. So in this demonstration, I'm basically randomly generating the numbers. This is how the puzzles get generated. And as those random numbers are generated for a cell, it does check the neighboring places and make sure it is actually valid for it to put something there. That way I don't have to scrap the entire puzzle. If something ended up in the wrong place, I just check that it's valid as I make it. If it's not, I keep regenerating the random number until it fits legally to go. So now that you guys have seen how the puzzle is initially populated with numbers, now I'll show you a quick demonstration of how the code selectively removes cells to end up with the final state of the puzzle that you actually solve. So in this demonstration, I'm going to show how cells are selectively cleared out for the player to fill in. Basically, the code will blank out 2 cells at a time, and after each step, it will run a solver routine to make sure that the puzzle is still solvable based on the context clues available. If at some point the puzzle becomes unsolvable, it should basically revert back to the previous configuration of the puzzle when it could be solved. In this demo, I've removed more cells than I actually do in the game just because I wanted it to get to an unsolvable state so I could show you what that looks like. In this case, name unsolvable, so it would revert back to the previous number shown. So that's pretty much all I wanted to show you guys about how the puzzles get created. I guess the next thing I'd like to talk about is really next steps in the project. I was originally planning on getting directly to the modern retro game within a month, and joke's on me. It took 2 months just to generate the modern game before porting it to modern retro systems. So seeing as how it took me this long already, I want to just go ahead and do a video on this initial version of this game and get it kicked out there. And in a follow-up video, I will talk about the experience porting it to some other systems. So that's kind of my thoughts there. Another thing I should say, I don't know if this would be considered errata. I've seen situations in rare occurrences where it will generate a puzzle that it thinks is solvable, but it's not. I do think it's quite rare that you see that. That is a bug that I do want to track down and fix, but I've already spent 2 months working on this, so I will try and figure it out before the ports get made. But you know, if you get stuck, you can take a guess and you're right or wrong. We could just start a new puzzle. Not the end of the world. I'll fix it at some point, just not immediately. So that's something I did want to mention there. If you find yourself stuck, it's not you, it's me. I did it wrong. But yeah, I think that ought to be fun. So the other thing is, I would like to get feedback from you guys. If you get a chance to try it out, which I would recommend, I think it's a pretty fun game. It's pretty chill. But if you do download it and try it out, please drop a comment in the video. Tell me, did you get the Windows version? Did you get the Linux version? And if you're a colorblind person, let me know if those colors worked or if I need to change them, because I see all those colors, so I'm not sure if I did it right. And also, if you have any fun feedback, like things to make it better. I mean, I was thinking about adding like high scores and all this other stuff, but like I said, I really just wanted to get this out so people could start playing with it, and I will try and make it better as time goes on. That's kind of where this is at. Anyhow, that's really all I wanted to say in this video, and that means it's my cue to get back to some modern retro dev. Take care.